What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Horror Fan 88 channel. I am back once again with another video. So since I just recently started posting again, I'm probably a little late to this video, or this type of video, but I thought we still got a few days of October left, so I wanted to give you my personal list for horror movies that I like to watch in October. And, of course, me being a die-hard horror fan, I watch these all year, it doesn't matter, but specifically in October I like to go to these. So maybe there's some cool recommendations if you haven't seen them. There's tons of movies that could be on this list, but this is what I came up with, so let's just go ahead and get started. Coming up first, of course, we have The Exorcist, one of the scariest horror movies ever made. Now I think this is definitely a good one to watch in October. You turn the lights off, watch this movie, and just get creeped out. I know this movie is dated for a lot of people, and it's definitely a slow burn of a movie. But I think overall, the final product is one of the scariest horror movies ever made. So The Exorcist is on this list. Forgot to mention, none of these are in any order. They're just some that I picked out, and we're just going to go with it. But coming up next, Pumpkinhead. I like to watch Pumpkinhead in October. It has one of the coolest creature effects of all time with the actual pumpkin head. Yeah, you got Lance Henriksen in this movie. Great effects. Very creepy atmosphere with it. Love Pumpkinhead. And I guess I forgot to mention another thing, is that not all of these actually take place on Halloween. There's definitely a few of them, but some of them just have something. Like this one. This is in my top 10 favorite movies of all time. That is the original Phantasm. Now, I love Phantasm too, but the original Phantasm is probably my personal favorite. This movie just feels so dreadful in a good way, so moody and atmospheric. The music is creepy. The night scenes are beautifully filmed with just the dark fog everywhere. The Tall Man, in my opinion, one of the most underrated horror icons of all time. And I love the characters too. You have Mike, Reggie, and Jody, who, they just got such a great bond, directed by Don Coscarelli. So yeah, the original Phantasm is a great movie. It's definitely, the Phantasm series in general can plain out not make sense, but I kind of just go with it. But yeah, the original Phantasm, definitely. Next up, the original Nightmare on Elm Street. Of course, this doesn't take place on Halloween, but when I want to watch a nightmare movie in Halloween, I'll usually go with the original, because once again, Wes Craven did such a great job. This is my favorite Craven film. But this movie too, Freddy is scary as hell. He's mostly in the shadows. Great creepy atmosphere, especially in the dream sequences. A great cast. Heather Langenkamp as Nancy Thompson, one of my favorite final girls. But yeah, of course, everyone knows this is before Freddy was the loud, cackling jokester. One of his first appearances in this movie is when Tina's in the dream, and she goes in like that alleyway looking thing, and you just see Freddy coming down doing that maniacal laugh, like all shadowed, very creepy and effective. Great special effects. Nightmare on Elm Street is a classic. Next up, now of course this one is set in the summer, clearly, but the original Friday the 13th. Now, why I went with the original is, of course, I'll watch a Jason movie, but this movie too has a good atmosphere to it. It's, to my opinion, it's one of the greatest slashers of all time, whether it having Jason or not. It got great kills, a great cast, moody atmosphere, great music by Harry Manfredini, and yeah, I just love the original. And I just watched it recently, and I watched it recently for the first time in quite a while, and it has definitely moved up on my list, because before it wasn't even in my top 5. Now it's in my top 5. I'm just like, this is actually a really good slasher movie. But yeah, the original Friday the 13th. Next up, Fright Night. Another one in my top 10 favorites. I just love this movie. Most of these movies, you're going to hear me say atmosphere a lot. And this one does have a good one. It has one of my favorite casts. Peter Vincent is such a cool character. Jerry Dandridge is a badass vampire. But, You know, you have Chris Sarandon, Roddy McDowall, William Ragsdale, Amanda Beer, Stephen Jeffries. It's just such a cool movie with killer practical effects and an amazing score. You know, Fright Night is just such a badass movie, and I love it. Next up, we have a Fulci film, City of the Living Dead. I chose this one because Fulci knew how to do atmosphere. You know, I love Fulci films. He's one of my favorite Italian directors, and this was the first film that I ever saw from him, and I was blown away just by how moody this movie felt. You know, it was very creepy, very dreamlike and atmospheric and creepy, and it was just such a well done film, and I really like it. Of course, this is a part of his Gates of Hell trilogy, City of the Living Dead, Beyond, House by the Cemetery. It's just a really cool movie. Pretty gross scenes in it as well. Fulci was like the Italian godfather of gore. Just really cool. If you haven't seen that, check it out. These next three, they kind of go together. So let's just go ahead and get those out of the way. The original Halloween and Halloween 2. Now, why? I mean, I watched all the Halloween films in October, but specifically these two, because to me, these two just go perfectly together. You know, they take place on the same night, have the same feel. There's a few differences, of course, like now Michael looks a bit different because of the actor's face wearing the mask now. But overall, it's pretty seamless, and I just think it's a great double feature to watch. And, yeah, don't really need to say any more about that. But next up, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. I know, most people don't like the movie. I know people don't like it because Michael's not in it. But I just think, even though Michael's not in it, that doesn't stop it from being a good Halloween movie, because it has a good Halloween atmosphere to it. I like the characters. I really like the score by Carpenter and Alan Howarth. Directed by Tommy Lee Wallace. And you got Tom Atkins, the man. And it's just a really cool movie. So like I said, I know it doesn't have Michael, but I've always enjoyed Season of the Witch and found it pretty dang underrated. And yeah. Next up, the original The Evil Dead. Now why I went with this one, even though Evil Dead 2 is my favorite, is because this one to me is obviously the most scary of the franchise, really. This movie's pretty freaky. Sam Raimi and everybody did a great job. This movie took like, I think 2 years to film because they kept running out of money, but the final product was creepy, atmospheric, and you know, you can tell some of the effects definitely don't age well, but I think it adds a certain charm to it. One of my favorite Deadites being Cheryl. She just looks so damn cool. And of course you got Bruce the Man Campbell. But of course this was before Ash was a badass. This movie is just kind of scared and cowering in a corner. But overall, this original movie is creepy as hell. Next up we have Trick or Treat from 1986. This one does take place on Halloween. But this is the heavy metal Trick or Treat. And I grew up with this movie. I was watching this movie on repeat. Great soundtrack by Fastway. Really cool characters. I've always dug this movie. Of course, this copy says Ragman. But yeah, I got the DVD over there too, but I don't like that cover. I prefer this one. But yeah, this is a great movie. Great soundtrack, great music, cool effects. You can tell it's low budget, but I just love Trick or Treat. Speaking of it, Trick or Treat. Trick or Treat. The anthology movie, I guess. Love this film. This is definitely a staple to watch around October or Halloween night. This movie has some of the best, if not the best, Halloween atmosphere in a movie, I think, personally. This movie is just bathed in Halloween, and I love it. And you gotta love little Sam there. You know, cool effects, cool stories, you know. I guess it's an anthology, but it's not in the way of like Creepshow, where it has like different segments, because all of it just takes place on the same night, but it just goes from different characters. But yeah, cool music. Just love this movie. Very cool. Next we have another one of my favorite movies of all time in my top 10. Grew up with this, Night of the Demons. This too takes place on Halloween night. I just love this movie. This movie has so much rewatchability for me. when I think of cheesy 80s horror movie fun, this is one I go to, much like Return of the Living Dead and Reanimator. This movie's so much fun. You have a great cast of characters. The makeup effects were done by Steve Johnson, and they just look so cool. This movie just has almost everything for me. It has a great score, great bloody gore effects, great demon effects. The atmosphere is great because, you know, it's a bunch of high school teens who skip the Halloween school dance and go party at the abandoned funeral parlor known as Hull House. And, you know, just the mood in that place is so creepy. And, yeah, great cast. Of course, you got Linnea Quigley, you got Amelia Kincaid in there as Angela. I just love this movie. And, of course, I have the 2 sequels and the remake. But the sequel, Night of the Demons 2, is actually another really good one to watch on Halloween. But the other 2, I'll get to those eventually. But yes, if you haven't seen Night of the Demons and you love cheesy 80s horror fun, check this out. Such a fun movie. And finally, for this list, we have the original Night of the Living Dead from George A. Romero. Dawn of the Dead being my favorite, but I think this film, you know, so low budget, made in 1968, I believe, but it was so effective, very creepy. You know, the way you know, I guess they call them ghouls in this movie, but the way the zombies were, and, you know, you have a great cast, just a really cool setting in the farmhouse. It's just a very effective movie, I think, and it's a classic. You know, lots of horror directors inspired when they saw this movie, but that is just my list as of right now. Like I said, there's tons of other horror you can put on here. So in the comments, let me know what are some of your favorites to watch around the Halloween season. But with that being said, maybe you've seen my list and you're kind of curious about one. Definitely check them out. And with that being said, stay tuned for more. Peace out.